Welcome to Noise with Ivan. I don't know if you remember last week I talked about going through the absolute bottom of everything. Man, there's a stink bug in here. Talking about I had gone down to the very bottom of the harsh noise chart. At 125, you get to mostly albums that have not received ratings for the most part. Not stuff that people have heard of. Um, Only one or two ratings. Maybe it did receive a low rating, but the way that it works is if it has one 3-star release or one 5-star rating, I mean, it does not go to number one because it has 5 stars. Even though that would be nice because then people would see it at number one, they'd be like, that's not number one, and then fix it. Um, when you're looking at the broad spectrum, obviously you want um, the things on the top to have a significant amount of ratings before they go to the top. So that's the way it works. I went to the bottom and I found a few things that I went over yesterday. Aft House was one of those artists. Wallmaster was one of those artists. Walmart Master is one of those guys who has just been doing a lot, over 1,000, maybe close to 2,000 releases. So you're going to see his stuff all over the place, even though his noise walls are very, very good. There was also a surprising amount of harsh noise wall in there. When I go to harsh noise, I'm not looking for harsh noise walls. I'm relatively well versed in what I've listened to as far as noise walls go. But I also found Phyllomedusa down there, who, if you don't know Phyllomedusa is a. One second. Before I talk about Phyllomedusa, this is Noise with Ivan. Okay. Welcome to Noise with Ivan. Roll the intro. I would categorize Phyllomedusa as a gore noise artist because I know him from being Fijian Fantasies is a pretty big deal as far as gore noise releases go, but the stuff is not, generally speaking, bodily mutilation. It's usually frogs. You know, it's usually frogs. But I will say is he's just in that scene and it's just low quality everything. You know what I mean? Gore Noise is low quality, self-made, one man, gore grind, really. So, and he does a lot of stuff by himself. Slime Immersion 2007. Goodness gracious. Yeah, that's a long time to be making all these releases. Pretty big deal. And he popped up at the very bottom with Sicilian Country. And I didn't know this, but also a lot of harsh noise walls. So this is definitely a noise artist by most standards, but it's he's very genre diverse. And the interesting thing about him, probably the best trait that I can give you is that all kinds of experimentation goes under Phil Medusa. Yes, he has aliases and monikers outside of Phil Medusa, but mostly uses Phil Medusa as far as I know. And he's got 350 releases under that moniker. That's really, really beneficial because people know you. People go back to other releases. People recognize it. There are a whole lot of gore noise artists where I'm like, oh, that's that person and that person and that person, that person, that person. That's all that one person, but you don't connect them. You don't connect the dots very easily anyway. Like Bobby Maggard, for instance. I believe this guy's name is Matt. um, but yeah, this was a harsh noise wall, and it was down there, and that was a strong one. But he has more harsh noise walls than I could equate. Bozeman on Rate Your Music put a bunch of his stuff together. I find that's not really a good idea. Bozeman put a bunch of his stuff together in a list, and Bozeman shows up in a lot of the same places as I do. But I was surprised to see him at the bottom. But just like I said, Wallmaster, Sergei Pakimov is wildly low with some of his releases. It's just because they do a lot, and not everything gets rated well. Rated a lot anyway. And how are people supposed to? You got 350 releases out. We're going to listen to multiple artists. But he definitely goes into, Phil Medusa definitely goes into sludge metal, shoegaze, that type of stuff, mincecore. But it's rough because you're not usually going to get a mix. You're anything really quality. However, I mean, you could argue if you're going to have a one-man project like this, first of all, the low quality allows him to go from place to place and have more diversity really than any other artist. So it's controversial, man, but that's a big complaint for a lot of his projects is you want to actually hear this stuff. And I've complained about a lot of Gore Noise records being I'm just like there's no value in this at all because the mix is so bad. It sounds like absolute trash. And it's the thing with this genre is that you can it is. You know, it's that's okay with them. You don't have to like it. Like those top Gore Noise releases are low rated because they don't care. Nobody, if they get past a certain point in popularity, the people who need a good mix, probably like myself, are going to get to it and say, this is not good. This is not good enough to listen to. Unlistenable. And go like 1.5, something like that. But the more I listen to Phyllomedusa, even as someone who needs a kind of a proper mix, the more I appreciate the diversity. But it really does keep it from being something that you can legitimately enjoy. But that's what makes gore noise and what makes underground music poor quality. And it doesn't sound like a tape like poor quality stuff used to. Poor stuff quality stuff used to just sound warm or lo-fi. It used to have a good mix and good production to a certain point, but it was recorded, on a 4-track cassette recorder. Now we have to figure out a way to make things seem underground or have that underground feel. And a lot of times it's just make it sound really bad, put a really bad mix on there. So I don't know. It's almost like you have to work harder to make it sound lo-fi, you know. Adequate Bambina is another one of the noise ones. Sicilian Country was good because it had multiple tracks. That was interesting because you can go from place to place, and they were at different time variations as well. I think one of them was under 10 minutes, one of them was 40 minutes. It was pretty odd to have that kind of variation. So it's structured differently. You're used to a 40-minute wall and then a 40-minute wall or 20 minutes or 10 minutes. You know, you don't usually get or you get a wall that goes from one place to another, a wall that slowly fades. You don't always get just a wall and then another wall at different speeds like that. Like that's very interesting to play with the duration of the tone when there is duration of tone. I have thought about doing improv, right, with my equipment and picking out the parts in order to do one of those releases with really, really short tracks on it, those like 15-second tracks with just a little bit of noise that sounds good. I've been thinking about doing improv and then just selecting the parts that I really like from it and then make a release out of that or a split or something. But Trauma Clouds was the release. Yield the Frost uh estivation. These are humongous words that I don't know how to say. And what I wrote here in my notes is there is a small portion of this that I can tolerate. I've been playing with whether or not Phyllomedusa is a good artist as long as I've been talking. And I was not quite there with this one. What I said was, gotta stick with the frogs. There's obviously cool experimentation going on, though. It's really cool. And he obviously had gone into black metal with Trauma Clouds. And the black metal's kind of cool. And it's kind of cool. You kind of get excited when he starts going into sludge metal or shoegaze, something like that. It's interesting. It's different. It's new, not what you're expecting from Phyllomedusa. And some of that stuff is really awesome. But the problem with going for something that you're not going to follow through with a good mix, with good instrumentation, is it brings your hopes up for an actual song or actual good song that it just ruins it for me because I'm looking for you to do sludge metal or shoegaze or something like that, and then the mix goes poorly, and it's I to me I don't understand why you wouldn't take the time to fix it, to follow through with the idea. You have to question Levi Garrett when they're a whole brand new company, they've got a new place, they're charging $17 a bag, and there's still stems in it. And you go, why not take the stems out? And they say that's the way we've always done it. That's kind of the reason, I suppose, but I also really do feel like it's just lazy. Again, it when you're lazy like that, you're able to go from genre to genre. You're able to put out tons and tons of releases. It just doesn't work the same. It doesn't work the same with a classic kind of gore noise release. And like I said, stick with the frogs. I really liked Shallow Parts of Perennial and the Opicex Heap. I'm probably pronouncing stuff wrong. I really like these two releases, and there's a lot of Phyllomedusa releases that I like. But when he tries to go, when he pushes past his themes, he has to follow through, and that's not happening. When he goes into sludge metal, black metal, and stuff like that, you have to color this release completely. You can't just halfway do it. But again, this was a really interesting, really neat release. He was doing really cool things. They just didn't last and they were thrown off. Post metal is listed as a genre for this release, and I think that's a really I think those post metal parts were really exciting for me. But again, when you get me excited like that, I'm like, oh, we're gonna do post metal. Oh, we're gonna do something really cool. We're gonna do sludge metal, post metal. Don't let me down. Don't let me down. Don't get me excited and then let me down. I would much rather have something that felt like gore noise or regular harsh noise or a noise wall. I'm happy with a noise wall. I like that kind of stuff. It throws off the balance, man. It was tough. Also down there, Satan's Grind in Mumford Froggy Friends. Wait, no, Froggy Friends. There is a release called Froggy Friends that I put on the list by Forest of Frogs. I can't remember who this overall artist was. This was harsh noise well, and I said, oh my goodness, this is so tree frog inspired, and there's so much gore noise that really has a lot of frogs going on in it. Sleepy Frog. I'm not familiar with this artist in any of the Amphibian. I'm not familiar with this artist in any other context, but it's a different tree frog kind of artist you got there. But Satan's Grind and Mom for Normal to stay in the soul. I don't know of anything else these guys have ever done either. Again, this is the value that you get from going to the bottom of the barrel, and there's nothing crust punk and gore grind. There's really not that much. These guys have Satan's Grind is no almost nothing. Considered grindcore Italian. I liked it, but it was really bad. So sometimes I like really bad stuff, but it has to own it. You have to own it if you're gonna not mix and things like that. Satan's Grind was just noise and drums, so you would kind of expect more. So that kind of pulls away from the value of a noise project. So it was pretty boring. The drums made it boring. It wouldn't have been boring if it was just the noise. Momfurdamal. It was interesting and kind of trippy, almost like gore noise, but like sludge metal type gore noise. You see what I'm saying? It's sludge metal. It would really be the sludge metal version of gore noise as opposed to grindcore, but it still gets lumped into gore noise because gore noise is just the thing that has the low quality DIY, literally do it yourself, like one person does it by themselves type of music. Corpse Secreting Furnace, Dead Bodies in Cold Walls. This is from 2017. I wrote that it has really glassy textures. This must have been a very great harsh noise wall. Oh, yeah, the volume went down at one point, though. I said, listen to this word, malformation. It was a really great release, but it was not consistent. It wasn't like a artistic kind of inconsistency. It was they messed up they accidentally like leaned on the on the mixing board, kind of didn't really work out great. Inlet Terror, It Came from the Shore. I thought it was pretty good. I can't find the cover for it. So it was real good. Came from the Shore. This is a 2022 release. And I believe I would have uploaded the cover. Oh, yes. It was really good. Okay, so this is one of those Intellect Terror. Yeah, this was really, really good. More of a harsh noise release. It looks like a noise collective on Mechanical Presence Records, which is a Philadelphia label. This was, oh my gosh, the tone was great. It was like loud but very compressed. So everything was kind of in the same area, not a noise wall, but a super compressed harsh noise project. Again, you've got a lot of, and you get great noise projects like Burial Garden. Everyone's kind of crashing together. It's a beautiful sound, and this has those glassy textures, and that coarse grain density. Oh gosh, it's a gorgeous thing. A lot of they break it up with voice samples. Yeah, this is a fantastic release. I can't recommend that enough. If you want to listen to something that came from the shore, Inlet Terror, or Inlet Terror, yeah. Inlet Terror, it came from the shore. Absolutely phenomenal. I gave it a four stars, and I am the second person who has rated this release. Good old Kador also said that it sews me up with dragonflies. 4 out of 5 stars, just like me. The Lika series by Sleep Column, the variation between these, I actually listened to these in reverse order. Number three was Pulsing, and I was excited to hear the rest of the series. Number two was a little bit tighter with a broadband, and still pulsing and with a lot of micro variations. And then the first one was just like it was still loose, but it was a whole lot tighter than this. So I guess it loosens as it goes from one to three. Pretty impressed with Sleep. I'm obviously familiar with Sleep Column. Sleep Column has done a lot of Harsh Noise Wall releases and has a Harsh Noise Wall fan. I'm into it, but yeah, not like no other releases come to mind when I think of Sleep Column. I'm not like, oh, that one was good and that one was good. So these definitely impressed me and I liked them. It's a shame that stuff like that is at the bottom of the barrel, but it's coming up. You know what I mean? I gave it ratings and I implore you guys to give it ratings. Stuff like this is good stuff. And we have to level the so we can find the actual, not just the most popular noise music out there. We have to find the actual best stuff out there. So upload stuff, rate stuff. Come on, guys. That's what I'm here for. That's what we're here for. And I can't remember the word, but there's a word that I like to use for handling all this stuff, facilitating noise music. I think that's the word, facilitating the noise. Will MK, P4S5WORD, 0RD, maybe it's a zero. Very chaotic, it has a lot of room, like reverb. You know how you'll have these noise releases with just they fill up the room, but the reverb becomes noise as well. So there's no real differentiation. There's not a strong differentiation between what the source of the sound is, where you're getting the reverb, and the reverb itself. Oftentimes, if you're smart, you'll run your reverb back in to the original source so that it grows. But you have to be careful with it. So you might be smart not to do it as well. There's really nothing smart about making a bunch of noise. Don't worry about it. Have fun. Try stuff out. Try new things. Death Noir and Crawford. Death Noir has a huge series of that's what Death Noir is. Death Noir has some releases that are not the actresses, but most of them are noise walls with the actresses, and most of these are two-track releases with a clip from a film. I don't know what Anne Crawford. I don't know these old actresses, but Anne Crawford was from Mary Nearly Hypnotized to Death on the High Wire. I don't know. They're not telling me what Anne Crawford was from. Usually it says. Um, so they're a harsh noise with spoken words. Some of these kind of differ from it, but oh gosh, yeah, I had a noir themed series that I listened to and I own it, and it was not the best. If you know, you know, but it was like kind of a dark ambient jazz type of thing, and I shouldn't have bought them. I was upset with myself, but yeah. This is another very glassy full band noise wall. And I didn't even at the time, I wasn't really wanting to listen to another noise wall. It impressed me. You know, I was not upset with that, and I listened to a lot of the things that Death Noir did, and I was rather impressed. I think Column is a little bit more bang for your buck, but these are 20-minute noise walls. These Death Noir releases 20 minutes. Listen, if you want a noise wall, I liked it. I was all about it. Peer group, this is another amazing one. Okay, so if I'm gonna give you recommendations, my recommendations, for Harsh Noise Wall, I don't know, but Inlet Terror. The Sleep Calm series is really great for harsh noise wall. I would start with that. If you really like it, you need some more, go to Death Noir. The Leaka series is really good though. I don't think you should not listen to the Leaka series. And you know the Phyllomedusa harsh noise walls are pretty cool too. Mm. But this peer group in Inlet Terror, I and maybe I'm the only one because I sent it to Disfigured Robot Child and didn't seem super into it. But I thought it was one of the best harsh noise releases that I've heard in a while. Um, Peer Group is really good too. Brutalist sketches in the style of water stained concrete. something different and interesting while still keeping the grounds of harsh noise. It kind of feels tame, but it's divided to 10 to 15-second tracks. I was just talking about this a second ago. Another release that I listened to like that was the new Juanito. Noisy, unabashedly noisy, unrelentlessly noisy, like super not embarrassed about being noisy. We're gonna get there. Let me figure it out. Unapologetically noisy. The new Juanito. Also, quadruple negative harmonics. I bought that, and it was a really cool release. So it's not really common for me to grab stuff that's kind of outside my zone like that. Of course, that's what this whole episode is. And all I am is nothing. I mentioned that for the last episode. Yeah. Oh, another good Noisewell recommendations. Always the Crude, but the Crude turned me on to, in some roundabout sort of way, Mange, who does really cool ambient noise walls. A little airier. Not in that it's airy, but it's a little bit. There's a little bit less to them than the Crude's noise walls. The Crude's noise walls are a little bit full, a little bit more classic, closer to being um, harsh noise walls. While there's still definitely ambient noise walls. I think cat noise wall and cappuccino noise wall, those are just on all the time whenever I'm getting anything done. So the Crude is a huge recommendation if you haven't already listened to the Crude. But I think most of you have, so Mange goes along well with the Crude. And this almost feels this peer group release. And again, it's a noise collective. I mean, that's a very powerful thing to have a lot of people working on a noise project. um pretty pretty cool, you know. And I'm also interested in those 10 to 15-second tracks, those really short tracks that make up a long release, you know. I wanted to read the extra notes. Modernist buildings whose primary element was unadorned concrete. Critics of the style emphasized how brutalist architecture epitomized the cold, glaring flaws associated with with utilitarian modernism. Before long, brutalism fell out of favor with forward-leaning mids who often used the example of the water-stained concrete surfaces of the buildings to cite just how poorly the new experiment in architecture had been executed. Peer group is Justin Mark Lloyd and Carl Kruger. Could not recommend that enough. K2, you most likely do not need me to recommend K2 to you. K2's been doing it since the 80s. Somehow got to the bottom of the harsh noise list. Yeah, K2 is like you'd put him up there with Merzbow probably. Um, Struer Hungzland. Struer Hungzland. Also, Japanese goes a long way when you're a noise artist. Of course, there are Japanese artists that like so from the basement corner missions kind of thing. Also people who pretend to be Japanese, but also Japanese artists from the basement corner missions circuit label. Underrated, I would suppose. It's just ultimately it's very upsetting to know Garo Gary Gege, Merzbow, Masona. You know, it's like we know, we got it. Like there's a lot of harsh noise and a lot of people approaching it from completely different angles. Then again, I haven't listened to a whole lot of Merzbow in a long time, and I could probably stand. There was a time when I listened to Merzbow nonstop, and you know, I'd like to go back to it at a certain point. I just don't feel like it's a good time for that, you know. DRC, Brian completely feels the opposite way. I haven't discussed it with him, uh, but he was like, I'm just trying to listen to all the Merzbow releases now. And I feel that too. That used to be the kind of headspace that I was in. I want to listen to all of this person's releases and then all of this person's releases. There's always more to consume. Ultimately, you can approach wanting to listen to more music from any perspective. Ultimately, first of all, rate your music helps me do that a lot because it makes me search. I kind of get addicted to searching and giving ratings and compiling stuff, organizing my collection, becoming more familiar with stuff. Making noise with Ivan kind of helps in a big way. No, making noise with Ivan is kind of hurts because I know if I listen to this release, then I'm gonna have to draw out the episode and explain it. But K2 is a huge artist. If you're not familiar with K2, go for it. But the biggest way that we can listen to all the things that we want to listen to and grow as artists and listeners is just cut the crap. You know what I mean? Don't You could probably cut out podcasts. You could probably cut out a lot of things that are just there to fill silences, you know. Um, I wouldn't cut out I think podcasts are in general good. I'm a little biased on that, but scrolling on social media and stuff like that, you have to find a way to settle yourself down and do activities. You know what I mean? Do any kind of activity. Wash the dishes and listen to music. Don't let anybody else wash the dishes. Say, I gotta wash these dishes because I need to listen to an album while I do it. You know? And not everything, it's tricky finding out what releases you need to listen to and pay attention to them, and also what releases go on good in the background. There's a lot of mostly splits and harsh noise walls go really good in the background when you're listening um, to music. And then all the people that impress you on the splits, then you can go for some of their individual albums. Probably how it should work. Merzboom, speaking of Merzbow, um, has another. This reminds me of old school harsh noise where you have something that's kind of complex and has a lot going on, but it's really quiet, which is interesting. It makes it easy to swallow. I discussed this with CCCCC. I can never see the right amount of C's. But yeah, it has a lot of layers. And then this was even better because you start with that kind of quiet stuff, and then maybe it plays with panning, it plays with a lot more dimensions anyway, and then you get something that's a lot louder and more upfront. So good noise releases do that. They have something quiet, they have something loud, they have something. You know, when you're listening to music, you can kind of feel things around this area and also feel something right here when it's centered. When really, when you're mixing a project, you can't, you can only mix like that unless you're mixing a Dolby Atmos or something. But you can really feel that. It just depends. You know, you have volume and panning and also EQ. So there's a lot of things that can alter that, and you can play with all those dimensions. Your setup might be playing with more than one dimension anyway, but you know, it would do you good to play with to take a mix and listen to it and say, well, where do I have something else? Also, you can't just improvise something and say this needs to be 100% of what it is. Select small parts of the project and say, I really like this. We're going to emphasize this here. And then in your DAW, take a note. Say, I really like this. Let's make sure that we accentuate it, make sure that we keep it loud in the front, but we can accentuate some other things in other areas on the left and the right, and lower registers or higher registers where it's not quite as impressive or it begins to be dull. Listening to releases and listening to your old releases where they weren't so good, or listening to other people's releases where they aren't so good, or maybe boring or drony when it's not good for it to be droning is a powerful thing. Also, listening to just noise walls is good. Yeah. Deprivation tactics. I'm back and forth with whether I want to listen to harsh, chaotic harsh noise or harsh noise walls. That's just something that happens as you grow. You go back and forth. Deprivation tactics was maybe gore noise, maybe noise core, probably noise core, but just not. This looks like a. That's a. Oh frick. That was just like a Spider-Man spider. I was just not happy seeing it there. It was a really good kind of grindcore DIY grindcore kind of thing. If you're looking for that, if you want to throw it in the mix, it's nice. It was kind of nice for me because I was down there in the harsh noise all day, in the harsh noise trenches, but it was not harsh noise, you know. So put that on your listening. No one's listened to it. Obviously, it's not correctly categorized. Rate your music, so you do a genre vote, and yeah, it's good. It's not bad. So yeah, deprivation tactics, not bad at all. But again, not harsh noise. Also known as Andrew Cleveland. Oh, what does Andrew Cleveland have? Oh gosh. Okay, Goth Girl. Goth Girl has a lot more releases. Okay, so if you're familiar with Goth, okay, Goth Girl has the Crepuscular Entity split. I remember that release, and I think actually I'm the one who uploaded it to Rate Your Music. Okay, we're connecting the dots. You see what I mean about how monikers are not beneficial for you? That would have rang a bell probably. We're using the term harsh noise loosely, however. Oh, Holy Grinder. He's in Holy Grinder. Oh my gosh. Pretty Mouth does not have a lot going on. Neat. But deprivation tactics is not a huge deal, but I mean, worth a listen. And Sheridan is up in here. It's really good. This is another one of the Death Noir releases. In fact, I'm not doing more Death Noir. More Death Noir next week. Do you like how because like last week I said I'm gonna do more some Phyllomedusa. To this week I'm saying I'm gonna do some Death Noir. I went through. I just listened to a lot of stuff and I can't really get past. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support this channel, listen to the releases that I have available on this channel. The stuff on the channel is not widely monetized, but the stuff that is distributed to YouTube uh, under releases is monetized. That would be the albums that are in playlists that have each single um, release as a video. But you're already supporting me. Oh, order CDs at notoftheflesh.bandcamp.com. I'll go through those CDs on this channel eventually, which will be fun. We have a lot of new releases. We have a new batch probably at this point, with a lot of Echopraxia is on it. Contrite Heart. There's a new Contrite Heart. It took me forever to make a new Contrite Heart. I finally did it. Patience by Contrite Heart. Listen to that. But you're already supporting by watching the video. So thank you so much for watching Noise with Ivan. And if you can, go on Rate Your Music. Give stuff ratings. Not hard to do. They need ratings. Really enjoyed these releases that were at the bottom of the barrel. I would recommend that you do the same thing. Um, Go check out the stuff that's just not popular. And this is not the end of my bottom of the barrel findings. It has gone on. I suppose it will go on for at least 3 episodes. So I'll catch you next time. Godspeed.